Good morning.
Good morning.
Before I get into my lesson today, I'd like to share a funny with you. A husband turned to his wife and said, "You know, honey, you really need to start being accountable for your mistakes." And she looked at him and she turned around and gave him a big hug. Think about it. Watch what you ask for. You never know. A little bit about myself. Some of you know me well. Some of you don't know me at all. I am a licensed Unity teacher. Reverend Donna was my mentor through that education. I knew her for over 50 years, and there's some people in the congregation this morning that I've known for over 50 years. We literally have grown old together. We used to complain about our parents. Now we complain about our doctor visits. It's like a part-time job. But anyway, I am a licensed Unity teacher and have been so since the end of the 70s. And probably back around 2012, I came upon a spiritualist church. A friend took me there, and people were encouraging me to be involved, and I wasn't sure. I wanted to know that what I believed meshed with what they believed. And so shortly after I started going there, the senior minister invited me to come into the ministerial program. And so I was ordained a spiritualist minister in 2015, just before my 65th birthday. That was my gift to myself. So that's a little bit about me. So this morning, our talk is about experiencing the higher love. Every one of us have experienced times when something or someone challenged our well-being in a big way. Sometimes it looms over us, and our response is anything but positive. Some of you know my overwhelming challenge was to restore my eyesight after an eye bleed that blocked the sight completely in my right eye. And then I had advanced cataracts in both eyes, and within 4 months' time I had 3 eye surgeries. You can imagine the mental and emotional reactions that I grappled with. It's like, will I still be able to be independent? Will I get my eyesight back? You know, all of those things were going through my mind. And by mid-August in 2023, all of that challenge was over. My eyesight was better than my previous normal. And now my eyesight is very close to perfect. And really, I don't need glasses to see you all, but I need them to read. So I just wear them all the time because I've worn glasses most of my life. So I just do that because I always have done it and I'm used to it. There's a story in the Bible that's very familiar to probably all of us. The story of David and Goliath. And of course, there's the Sunday school version, and then there's the metaphysical version. So let's begin. The story is found in 1 Samuel 17, verses 1 through 58, which I will not read all of that today. You get a break. I'll be telling the Reader's Digest version. I want to get right to the point. Young David, the shepherd boy, is asked by his father Jesse to take food to his 3 older brothers at the battlefield front where the Israelites were fighting with the Philistines. David gets to the camp and hands over the food supply to the supply master. He then goes to find his brothers, to get an update on the battle so he can take that back to his father. David witnesses the Philistines sending out their most fierce soldier, Goliath. He's big, he's loud, he's fierce looking, and he has weapons. Goliath has been taunting the Israelites now for 40 days, challenging them to send someone to the battlefield to fight him. But guess what? There's no takers. They are all too intimidated and afraid of him. Accepting the challenge would mean certain death. Haven't those big challenges taunted and threatened and loomed over us, striking fear, worry, and anxiety in our minds and emotions? We can't eat, we can't sleep, and we can hardly function day to day. In our minds and our emotions, it's bad, it's awful, and it's painful. So what are we going to do? We have a choice. We can keep suffering, or we can figure out what to do. David is willing to stand up to the challenging giant Goliath. None of those qualities about Goliath frighten him. No one wants to take David seriously to take on Goliath. After all, he's only a boy. But no one wants to take his place either. It's decided to allow David to take the challenge. King Saul tries to outfit David with armor, which doesn't fit. And David says, no, I don't need that. He decides to use what is familiar, tried, true, and tested. His slingshot. Now, if that were me, I'd say, are you serious? You must be nuts, a slingshot against that guy? He chooses 5 smooth stones from the creek and proceeds to the battlefield. And I would like to read some of the story to you. I won't read the whole thing, but there's some of it I want to read. So the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all the assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it was so, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword and drew it out of his sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that the champion was dead, they fled. Now the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted, and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road, even as far as Gath and Ekron. And I think I'm going to stop there. So that was the end of Goliath. And you can imagine how fast that stone was going if it sunk into his forehead. That's pretty powerful. So let's look at the metaphysics of the story. The name David means beloved, and represents divine love individualized in human consciousness. Love's highest expression is always service. David's life was a life of service to God. And as we know, David later became King David, as the prophet Samuel had predicted. In the Old Testament, David is known as the forerunner of Jesus and the Christ consciousness. Jesus was of the lineage of the house of David. Goliath represents those large and strong, aggressive and domineering ideas. Like Goliath, who brags about his power and shouts threats, keeps us frightened and in submission to an unrighteous reign. It is a reign of terror. It's a reign of terror. David's overcoming and defeat of Goliath illustrates mastery of the spiritual over the material. David's power was gained by trust in divine intelligence, through which he saw the weak spot in Goliath's armor. David ventured forth with the idea of devotion to God, and God would bless him with strength and might to defeat the enemy. The power of God would overcome Goliath, and David would be victorious. For many years, I was taught the principle of victim versus victor, and how powerful it is to shift from feeling like you're a victim to being a victor. Victim consciousness means everything is happening to me and I have no control. Victor consciousness means everything is happening by me and I have some control. These two states of consciousness can foster and reinforce thoughts of separation from God and duality of power. This pattern will continue to create those Goliath experiences over and over, making us victims, trying very hard to be victors. And don't people love to commiserate together about being the victim? Oh, ain't it awful? If you find yourself there, it's time to do something. We can break this cycle by shifting to the vessel consciousness. The vessel are ideas that prompt the question, if the divine is working through me, what's really going on? This is the primary step to moving into verity consciousness. Verity consciousness is the awareness that you and the divine are one, not two. And so in the book Mystical Arc, written by my friend Reverend Eileen Patra, she says the divine is not just in you. The divine is made manifest or expressed as you. David, as divine love, moved into the verity consciousness. Not only was he on a mission to serve God, he allowed God to move in and through him to defeat and overcome the big obstacle standing in the way of winning the battle and moving forward. Many years ago, I heard a minister say, "We can have faith in God, but do we have the faith of God?" I'll say that again. We can have faith in God, but do we have the faith of God? That's the verity consciousness. We are one with God, not two, not separate, but one with the one presence, one power, one activity of all goodness, power, and love. And we can slay giants. We can slay giants. Thank you for allowing me to share with you this morning. God bless you. I would invite you to join me in a time of prayer and meditation. To settle ourselves, I invite you to take a breath and let it out. And if you need to, take a second breath and let it out. And as we relax, we find that quiet, sanctuary, sacred space within us where we meet God. No one else can go there within us. They can within themselves. And so as we rest here, we remember that truly there is only one presence, one power, one activity of all goodness and love, which is God. And it's in that presence, power, and activity that we now rest, consciously rest. In this space, we are one with the one. In the presence of God's love, we are safe and secure. Feel how that would feel. In the presence of God's love, I am safe and secure. Nothing can harm me. Nothing can overpower me. Because nothing is more powerful than God. And I am one with God. All the power there is in the whole universe is right where I am. Momently, the world changes, but God never changes. God is always present, powerful, loving, wise, understanding, compassionate. And so are we. God lives and moves and has his being in and through us. God finds expression through us. In that verity consciousness, we know that we have the faith of God. We have the power of God. We have and we are the love of God to the fullest that we understand. In loving spirit, we give thanks that every moment we recognize your presence, power, and activity of all goodness and love is right where we are. And we are safe and secure in that presence. For this and so much more, we say thank you, loving Spirit. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, Reverend Carol. I'm pleased that you are here. Thank you for your message. At this point in our service, we recognize our tithes and offerings. Last week, the love offering was $990, and the tithe went to Reverend Linda Dominic. This week's tithe will go to Spiritual Center of Lansing, and we are grateful for these tithes and offerings because they demonstrate and affirm our consciousness of prosperity and plenty, and remember that in truth there is plenty to share and plenty to spare. Knowing this truth, we say the following together. I freely give and freely receive the abundance of God. My heart overflows with praise and thanksgiving. Amen. So as Sean and Bob come in, we are going to just remind you about a couple of upcoming things. First, thank you to everyone who joined in the last Sunday to show the building some love. We had a really great turnout, and many hands did make light work. We had great food, great fellowship. It's not too early to start thinking about the 1 cent sale coming up in May in a few weeks. On Saturday, the setup and the cleanup at the end are the biggest jobs. 4 or 5 people working together can accomplish them in about an hour. If you are a morning person, maybe the 7 a.m. setup might be your jam. If you are a sleeper inner, you might have more fun coming later and helping with cleanup. We kind of box up everything that's left over and take it to donation. You all have been part of this for years, so I'm probably not telling you anything new. Cleanup would be an awesome contribution if that is about 3 o'clock, if that is works best for you. So please consider joining in part or some of this event and bringing any of those items that could have another life. It's really a delight to watch people come and find that treasure amongst maybe something that you brought or something someone else brought. They get excited. Oh, wow, look at this. It's a bargain they're going to brag about for a long time. This was the last day to donate items or money to Detton Farms. If you missed a chance and you still want to do it, you can be in touch with Sylvia. And the May and June outreach will be for the Detroit Veterans Center, which you can see up front for here for a list, or in back there's a list, or the website for the wish list of items that they are looking for. And of course the plastic bag collection for the Mitten Mission basket still remains out there. That'll be ongoing. So anytime you think about it, scoop up those plastic bags and put them to good use. And now let us bless the path we walk this week as we say to God. We got to bless our tithes and offerings first. I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you, Bob. Would you be willing to bless? I wasn't sitting down. Yeah, right? Oh, good, he's coming up here. Oh, yeah. Thank you, loving Spirit, that we understand and we know deep within ourselves that the source, the gift, and the giver are truly one. We bless these gifts that have been given in love and joy, and they are dedicated to the Christ teaching in this church and used wisely by the board of directors to bless this church, the community, and the community at large. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you both. And now we are ready to bless the path we walk this week. As we say together, I go forward in the Spirit of the Lord, knowing my way is made easy, joyous, healthy, and prosperous. I am grateful. Amen.